Hi, I'm Nam Tran. I am from the School of Science, Engineering, Technology. I'm currently in my second slash approaching third year of PhD. So that's around the mid-candidature stage. And I'm also the president of the Swinburne Postgrad Research Association, or formerly PhD Club.
Hi, my name is Andrea Fenton and I'm from the School of Business, Law and Entrepreneurship. And I have recently completed my PhD. I've handed in the thesis and I'm just under that examination process. So feeling a little bit relaxed, but still nervously awaiting the outcome.
Hi, my name's Maria Buttery. I'm with the School of Business, Law and Entrepreneurship, and I am heading towards my mid-candidature review sometime early next year.
I'm Ada Puyen Hong. I'm from School of Engineering. I graduated in 2020. Currently, I'm employed in Swinburne as a postdoctoral research fellow.
Excellent. My name is Alan Bisalis. I did my PhD from Swinburne's Faculty of Business and Law within the School of Business, Technology and Entrepreneurship. It took me, full-time, it took me 3.5 years to complete. That said, I did dabble with going part-time in the beginning and decided I wasn't making enough progress, so I came on full-time.
What advice? So my name's Charlotte Marshall and I'm from the School of Health Sciences at Swinburne University of Technology.
So for me, I'd say timing. 3 years passes by really quick. So at first, I thought, yeah, 3 years, that's forever. You know, that's like an entire undergrad. So I just took my time. I took my sweet time. And then when I got to confirmation and candidature, I thought, oh no, I better get on the dot now. And yeah, so make a plan that's, although flexible and adaptable to change, it has measurable goals and checkpoints. So you want to know you're at this point, you should be doing something. Don't be like, yeah, there's 2 years left. I'll plan what to do then. That was my case.
You need to be flexible, I guess, and quite open-minded. When I first started, I had, quite concrete ideas about where I thought my thesis and my research was going to go, but that undergoes so many changes. You start doing, a deep dive into the literature. Maybe you found things you didn't find before. And so I think you have to maintain that sort of open mind and be ready to pivot your research if needed. And I don't think I've met one PhD student who didn't say the same thing.
I guess don't be shy. I wasted a whole year wondering, when someone was going to kind of tell me what to do. And in the end, I realised that I really needed to make contact with other students and have a look at all of the course, all of the resources that Swinburne had to offer. The other thing I would mention too is to start writing now, even if you're writing stuff that you think is probably not useful, it is useful later on.
I advise to join the PhD student club and socialize with their group mates, lab mates, or other students. It will be a great way to discuss with others, peers about their PhD experience, get advice of how to start with the PhD, and share their life in Swinburne and make friends.
Take ownership of your PhD from the beginning. It's not just your supervisors who are managing you, but it's also you who are managing them. I think that was a game changer for me when the penny dropped on that. I started to set up fortnightly meetings with my supervisors, and it held them accountable to giving me feedback in a timely fashion. And it held me accountable to make sure I made progress on a regular basis.
So this is embarrassing. So be more diligent with your literature. Keep it recorded. Don't scatter all over the place. Don't have some printed out if you need some at home. Everything in one place. And also follow the literature like you're following gossip. So, at your COC or at your pre-COC, you might have thought, I have a plan, I've put the dot points, I've written my draft literature review to submit, and that's it. Literature will be the same for the next 3 years until I graduate. But it might be the case, no one might have published in that time, but as you learn more concepts, you learn more skills, and you read up on those skills, you'll find new articles and new papers related to those skills that you just learned, and you'll realize, I didn't know as much about the literature as I had. And then you have to go back and fix it. So it's not so much the literature has changed, but your snapshot, your cut through of the literature will have expanded.
That's an interesting question. For me personally, probably not too much. Although what I would say is that I think at any stage when you require assistance, you should definitely reach out. I personally have found everyone at Swinburne, really approachable. They're always willing to help. So I don't think it's helpful to kind of sit around and think, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do here. I think really reach out if you need something.
Doing PhD can be lonely and isolating. So I think human interaction, like making friends with someone from different faculty or someone understand what you are going through in your work is really important.
Hold your supervisors accountable more than they hold you accountable. It is absolutely your project. It is your PhD. Unless you've been given grant funding and you've got a very specific research area that's been predefined. Most PhDs are quite blue sky. So pick something that you're absolutely passionate about. Pick something that you really want to research, because this is probably the only time in your research career where you can actually do what you want. Quite often, you're doing what someone who's providing the funding wants.
The first one is the Swinburne Career Centre. So they are really good with helping you with resumes, and they have these regular employability workshops too, where they can teach you how to hone your interview skills or just things like mindfulness in your career. Those are really nice. Swinburne Health is another one. So often I would finish on campus at 7, 8 p.m. and there's no time to get back to my family GP clinic. So I often book an appointment at Swinburne Health, and that'll be sometime at lunch. And it's really easy, really fast to do. It's just a click online. And also the Swinburne Student Life. They have things like the tax help program. So when I was first adulting, I didn't know how to do taxes. So I had to go to them, and they were really nice. They helped me. Sometimes you would have confusions like, how does the stipend fit into your tax return? And they know how to do all of that. So that's pretty good. Another one is the club, the PhD club, or now the Swinburne Postgrad Association. So even before I got involved, the people there were really nice. They'd have these weekly lunches at the Hammer and Swine pre-COVID, and we just bring a lunch there, chat. They'd have these monthly meetups where there'd be trivia, board games. So yeah, it's just an overall nice place to make friends when there's an event happening.
So Swinburne run a number of kind of formal information sessions aimed at different parts of the PhD, when you're in your first year, when you're in your second year, coming up to confirmation of candidature, for example. I found those kind of information sessions super helpful. So they are voluntary, but I would recommend to everybody to attend those sessions. And what you'll find is, apart from finding out, kind of concrete information that you need to know, you're also going to meet other students that are in the same boat as you. So that's really another really helpful resource that you can use along the way, as well as a friendship that might develop out of that, but it's definitely going to help you.
I think probably the most helpful person was Jane O'Donnell in my first year in the library, because they were just navigating my way through higher education when I hadn't been. I'd finished my master's in 2014, and that was quite different to being an HDR student and doing my PhD. So she was absolutely fantastic, and I would encourage everybody to meet with Jane. She's extraordinarily helpful in terms of research and using EndNote and basically anything to do with research.
Swinburne offered a lot of short courses. I took a heap of them. I also started before the graduate certificate was in place, but I did research intensives. I did courses offered by the graduate services team. I did courses on stats, research design, methods, etc. They absolutely help clarify and define the research question, understand the research gap, also focusing on the long-term project plan, the methodology. It made me think clearly, and it gave me a good framework to help with my research proposal. But most importantly, it actually got me to meet people, because a PhD is a really lonely experience. I struggled with that in the first 6 months. But through those courses, I built up a network over time. And then I've made some really, really good friends, probably friends for life. And I think it was just by doing these ad hoc courses here and there. I didn't have a desk on campus. So that was my only way of really meeting people.
So I came from very physicsy background, and I jumped into biology, and I didn't know anything that was going on. I didn't know the nomenclature. I didn't know the literature. I didn't know anything. And so I thought, okay, I'll just read. I'll read more, just like a physics textbook. I'll keep on reading, and I'll find the answer soon. But it didn't really work that way. And I found out soon, you really learn by doing. So you don't need to know everything before you start. When you start, you learn what you need to do, and you don't need to be the expert in the, I mean, you have to be the expert in the field, but you don't necessarily need to be the expert when you're doing the thing, because anything that you need, you will pick up, and anything that you don't need, it will just filter out. It's not like an undergrad exam where you need to learn everything in this syllabus. You just need to learn, your project might have very specific requirements. You need to learn this concept, that concept. Not everything is, it's okay to not know everything, I guess.
During my first year, it was not, my father had recently passed away, and we suddenly discovered that my mother was actually had quite advanced dementia, which wasn't apparent before he died. So dealing with all of that, I found really difficult, particularly as she was in Adelaide. So I eventually, I mean, I tend to keep a lot of that stuff to myself, but eventually I confided in my supervisor, and he encouraged me and supported me, and basically insisted that I took 6 months off to get all of that stuff organized so that then I could focus on my research.
The most challenging thing is sometimes I lose my motivation. PhD is a really long project. It takes 3 to 4 years. So my motivation sometimes will dip and peak along the way. When I need to do, so what I need to do is to keep the things varied, interesting, realistic, and rewarding. So sometimes I will set myself some short-term goals, and when I lack the motivation, so that I can start to progress again. Also, I identify what motivates me and give myself regular rewards. Like I will treat myself a big meal or allow myself escape from work after I achieve a certain goal. It will be easier to motivate myself if I know where I was headed to and keep track of the milestone achieved.
I think there were 2 really challenging things I experienced. One was one of my supervisors got really, really ill and had to leave the team. That set me back about 6 months. He sort of left Swinburne. So I had to find another supervisor. I had to change my supervisory team. He had provided me with a tremendous amount of guidance. So it was a massive loss. I think a lot of students go through that, and you feel the pressure that your clock is ticking and you're not making progress, but at the same time you need to find someone else who will provide you that level of guidance. And then the second thing is, I think this happened, this is probably more common. I found that my supervisors didn't align, and that was super, super challenging. It took me a while to realize they didn't align. And then when I was telling them that they didn't align, they hadn't realized that they didn't align. It was subtle, but critical. And I would literally be in a meeting saying, "You are telling me different things." And they would be like, "No, we're not." And they were too polite. It caused me to rewrite my first analysis chapter 5 times. And I kid you not, 5 times. And then finally I said to them, "Stop being so agreeable." I literally did a PowerPoint presentation with flow diagrams, and I showed them how each of them were interpreting things differently, and how I was interpreting what they wanted. And then it led to an aha moment. And after that, bang,
So asking for help, this one I would really recommend. Ask for help, not just from your principal supervisor, but even your panel. So if you ever getting towards a milestone, or you just don't know what to add into your thesis, your panel is going to be the one reading it. So just ask them, hey, what would you like to see on this? Or what do you think I should do? Or even just your friends. Sometimes your friends, the people in the year above, if you know any, they'll be the person to talk to because they've been in your shoes. They know exactly, then once upon a time they were there and they're like, what the hell is happening? I don't know what's going on. Who do I talk to? That's where you want to go, to people who have been there.
I think being able to reach out to people for assistance if you feel you need it, and different people's opinions really kind of help shape what it is that you're going to do. So I think reaching out again is a key thing there.
One of the things that I did do was sort out people that I knew had been through COC, and I actually asked them, and they were very generous with sharing their COC documents, because when you're writing it for the first time, you kind of don't know where to start. You don't know what exactly they want. So having a look at a few others really sets the tone, I think, to understand it. So yeah, they were really helpful.
I attend some research and writing-based workshops, which were organized by the Swinburne Library. Those workshops teach me some citation softwares like EndNote, Mendeley, and thesis formatting like LaTeX, which absolutely are useful during my writing. I suggest PhD students work smarter by learning this kind of software to cite the source and format correctly. And you can also join some writing workshops that teach you how to write proper report in the professional year. Especially, it would be very useful when you write your COC report. After you are familiar with this software, it will cause fewer headache when you write your papers or thesis later on.
Okay, so this one only relatively recently. So I'd say in the past few months. So first year, I was still fairly confused. I wasn't very secure about my knowledge of the literature. I felt like coming to a new field, I wasn't really an expert in anything. I was sort of the jack of all trades, master of none. And it only took me, after making mistakes, that's the key. The more mistakes you make, the more it will make you feel like you know what you should be doing. As you make mistakes, you write it down. And the more mistakes you make, the more of a master you will be in what you're not meant to be making mistakes in.
You are concentrating really on one area with a PhD. So I guess, probably about a year or 18 months into it, I kind of felt like, yep, I really know this subject matter quite well. I'd feel confident to answer any questions based on this subject matter. And, I think, a challenge for us as people undertaking a PhD is to make our research understandable to other people. So, I would often talk to family and friends about it. And, if they couldn't understand what I was talking about, then maybe I was using too much jargon or I wasn't breaking it down. And I was fortunate to be able to participate in the 3-minute thesis competition that Swinburne is a part of. And I really, really love that challenge of being able to make my research, understandable to a non-academic audience. What does it mean? What am I trying to achieve? And that was a really great opportunity. So for any PhD students, I'd really recommend, if you get the opportunity to participate in these types of competitions like the 3-minute thesis, then please, take those on board. I really think you'll get a lot out of them.
I think it took me 2 years. And the reason was, I think until you start analyzing your data, because even data collection, I think, is like, yeah, great, I've collected data, but you have no idea what that data will mean. You have no idea if it's actually going to lead you towards answering your, well, theoretically, it should lead you towards answering a research question if you've got alignment across from your research gap and your methodology. That alignment is critical. If you've got that, then great. But once you start analyzing your data, I think, at least that was for me, that's when I started to feel like, okay, I've got it.
I'm nearly 2 years in, and I still think I'm only actually just getting to what an understanding of all it is. I think it takes time, and because it is a development over three, maybe even 4 years, I think it's one of those things where it doesn't matter if you don't get it in that first year, that it does take time to build up your understanding of your topic, to look at the research, to have an understanding about research, because being a research assistant or a clinician and then doing your own research is very different.
So I try to spend the weekends doing stuff with friends or family. Even if it's not much, just try to spend some of it. And weekdays, just go all out on your work, and then weekends, just relax. Of course, there'll be exceptions when you get to paper submissions. You'll be hermit life for the month.
But I think you just have to, make those small breaks where you can, even if that's walking to the local, cafe and getting a takeaway coffee, or going for a walk with a friend. Those kind of things, for me, I really feel they are super important. You get that break, you get that socialization, and away from academia, maybe, somebody who's not going to want to know about your research, and you can just switch off and talk about other topics.
I have dedicated times when I will and won't work. So I will work on a Sunday. That's fine. I won't work on a Saturday. And there are mornings that I've set aside for work life, for sort of life balance, and I shut the door. And I think that for me, it's all about keeping a diary, because I'm a list person. It doesn't work for everybody, but that's what I do. And the other thing too is that I book things that I like to do. For example, I love Reformer Pilates, so I'll book it and I'll pay for it. It's $40 and I'm not going to miss it. You can't cancel it at the last minute. So it forces me to go.
Sometimes I would treat it as a 9-to-5 job, and I have to be very disciplined in this time frame. I need to do better and more productive within this working hour, and then I can enjoy the time away from the work.
I found it easy. The PhD is a wonderful time in your life. You have so much flexibility. It's unreal, but that's a double-edged sword. I genuinely kept a schedule, like as if I was working. I use the Pomodoro technique, and I set myself a minimum of 12 Pomodoros a day. And I think there were some days that I did 24 Pomodoros, but on average, I said, my base minimum is 12 Pomodoros a day. It meant that I was consistent with the way I worked. So, yes, of course, if you're coming up to a major milestone, your mid-candidature or your confirmation or submission date, you might work a lot longer. But I think I guarantee if you do the day in, day out, if you do those Pomodoros, you're less likely to have those crazy times. That really helped. I made sure I broke my day up. I say exercise after finishing. So say I aim to do 14 Pomodoros. So after 7, I would head to the gym, go for a run, go for a walk, whatever you like to do some yoga. And then I'd come back and finish the next 7. So this way I was looking after myself as well. And because I had the flexibility, I was able to keep that really, really consistently for, 3.5 years. And that made a world of difference. The other thing with the Pomodoro technique that I think I found useful is it gave me analytics on my own work ethic. And what do I mean by that? So, for example, I don't know, sometimes your supervisor say, why don't you go and research this? And I want to see it, in 2 weeks. And then when you go back to your Pomodoros, and if you say, okay, I did a Pomodoro, but what did you actually do in that Pomodoro? And you realize, well, it actually takes me 3 weeks, maybe 3.5 weeks to do that kind of analysis or that kind of research. So then suddenly when your supervisor says, well, let's do it in 2 weeks, and you agree to it, and if you generally come back feeling like you've missed your deadline, if you have that, you can quickly say, no, I don't think that it's going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take me 3.5 weeks. So you're now setting realistic timelines for yourself and for them. And it actually makes it much better all around. So you're not constantly feeling like you're letting the team down.
I do try and finish at a good time in the evening, but about, making sure that you've got time to cook dinner and wind down and shut the door and just walk away from it all as well, that it is important, because it is a 3-year. It's not as I always say, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So you do need to take your time with things.